Hi, it's Jamie from an Oregon Cottage, where you'll find simple whole food recipes, easy DIYs, and doable gardening tips. And I'd like to thank Fiskars for sponsoring this video. Today I'd like to share some gardening tips with you that have really changed my gardening life, and I hope to do the same for you too. I garden organically, and I really feel like it just makes the most sense to me. It always has. It's easier because I don't have to operate heavy machinery. I don't have to do back-breaking digging or weeding. I find it cheaper once the foundation is set because I don't have to keep an arsenal of fertilizers and fungicides or herbicides. And I really have comfort in knowing that my flowers and vegetables and even the runoff from my property doesn't carry any residues that's going to harm anyone. In fact, I've even called the way that I garden lazy gardening because I find organic gardening so easy. So these are some of my top tips, and I hope that you'll find them just as easy as I do. So the number one thing to do before you start garden is to plan, and you do have to plan a little bit. You can see in the background that we've planned our garden. We're still in the process of putting our new vegetable garden together at our farmhouse fixer, and that is one of the things that I looked at. I needed to know a couple of things. First of all, I needed to know my zone. So you'll need to know your zone of where your garden is, and that will tell you when to plant and what to plant. So for example, I'm in the Pacific Northwest in the mild western part, and so our zone is 8. I can plant quite a few things, and I can start planting in March and April. If you're in zone 3 or 4, you'll have to wait longer to plant, and you might not be able to plant quite as many things. The second thing in your planning is you want to find the places that have the most sun, the places on your property that are partial shade, and anywhere that's deep shade. If for vegetables, you want to plan your vegetable garden where you get the most sun possible. I mean, if you do 8 to 10 hours a day of sun, you're going to have the most fruit. I know that some things you'll read maybe say 6, and you can get by with that, but if you want the hardiest plants that produce the most for you, get in the most sun you can. Then the third thing with planning your garden is you'll need to know about plants. So if you don't know anything about plants, you'll have to do a little bit of research, kind of find out the difference between an annual, perennial, a shrub, and part of that will come along with you deciding to figure out what your zone is and what grows and doesn't grow there. So know plants, know your zone, and know where your sun and shade is. The other huge tip, probably the number one tip for organic gardening, is to build your soil. And you want to take really good care of your soil. You want to build it with layers. So we built these beds, these raised beds. The bottom layer is manure. The second layer is straw, grass clippings, whatever we could find. And then we put soil on top of that. And then this is a layer of garden compost that also has some manure in it. So you want to layer with really good quality stuff that will just feed the soil and build the soil. And one of the reasons that I really like raised beds is because it helps you to take care of your soil better. So we don't need to till it. In fact, you don't want to till because that just brings up a lot of weeds and weed seeds. And you also don't need to walk on it, so you don't need to compact the soil, which hurts the soil health too. So take care of your soil, build it up, and then when you need to plant in it, all you have to do is plant in the area you're going to plant, so you don't need to disturb all the other soil. So the next tips are around planting right, and what you want to do is grab a plant. This happens to be a columbine. I really like to plant them in beds like this because they'll naturally keep producing, and so plant them once and they'll keep producing for you, and they bloom in the spring like this, so it's gorgeous. So when you've got a plant that you want to plant, you want to make sure this is a gallon-sized container, so you want to make sure that your hole that you're planting is bigger than your container. And then this is just not so great soil. We're building this up. We're starting with our layering. So when you plant in soil that hasn't been amended, you want to go ahead and put some new soil or compost in the hole that you're planting in. And I'll show you in a minute, you do want to mix that in so that some of the old soil is mixed in with the new, so the roots don't just hit new soil and then not want to go into the old. So you just want to make it as easy as you can for that plant. Now, I haven't looked at this plant, so I don't know, but sometimes when you get plants from the nursery, oh yeah, see, that's when the roots are all together like this, that's called root bound. And that just means the plant's been in here for a while. And if you just put that in there like that, the roots would continue to grow that way. And in 2 or 3 years' time, you could pull this out probably just like this. I've had it happen. So what you want to do is you want to push these roots with your hands. It's okay to break some of them. What you want to do is get them used to starting. Sometimes you're going to get some that are so hard that you might have to actually use an edge of a scissors and like cut through them, and that's okay because you want the roots to start growing. Okay, so then you want to put it in your bigger hole and then fill in with some of the same soil that it came from and some of the newer soil. So you kind of just want to blend that soil in. If you have really good soil already and you've been building up your beds, you won't need to do that. But on this one, you will. Go ahead and fill and cover the plant up to the same level that it was when it was in the pot. So next I'd like to share with you some pruning tips. If you have spring blooming plants that are going to bloom anywhere between March and June, you'll want to hold off pruning those until after they've bloomed. So you'll wait till after they're done blooming and then you'll prune those. This is a hydrangea and it's a summer blooming plant. And as you can tell, I didn't clip all the blossoms off it before the fall came, so it's needing to be pruned so that all this new growth can come out. So what you'll want is probably a couple of pruning tools. You want a bigger pruning tool to cut out any of the bigger dead branches. You just want to get those out of there. And any of the bigger pieces that you can see, you can use the bigger tool for. So for getting these old deadhead where the new growth is coming, you want to get down, but you don't want to cut that new growth. I really recommend a small pruner like this that has the scissor-like things, because you can really get that and you won't hurt any of this new growth. So you just want to go through and prune that so that will all come off, and your hydrangea will now be able to bloom and grow and look beautiful. So a big watering tip is to water at the roots of the plants, and I find it really easiest to use soaker hoses or some sort of drip system that you then hook your hose into, and then you water just the plants that need it, maybe a little in between, but you're not watering all the other areas to grow the weeds. Plus, you're really getting deep water to the roots of the plant that needs it. One of my favorite gardening tips is using newspaper or cardboard and mulch to cover up weeds and flower beds and any place that you're starting new bed. And so when you're doing it, I like this compost that feeds the soil, but you can also use bark chips, and you just lay down newspaper like we've done here, and you just cover up. You remove some of the big weeds, like anything that would make the paper stick up, or perennial weeds that have a deep taproot like dandelions. So you want to remove those, but all the other ones you can leave. Cover them with your newspaper and then spread your mulch over the top, and voila, beautiful. Your beds look done and less work. And I'm not sure how much of a tip this is, but I'd really like to encourage you to grow herbs. Culinary herbs like this oregano and parsley are so fun to just come and snip and add to your meals. And I mean, the smell is so wonderful. You can't even compare this to dry. But also, herbs are relatively easy to grow. They don't need a lot of soil amendments, water. They don't need any fertilizing. And deer and rabbits typically do not like most herbs because they have that wonderful strong smell. Herbs also include flowering herbs like lavender. So you really want to make both culinary and flowering herbs part of your organic garden. So one of my big tips is to keep a garden tote full of stuff and carry it with you whenever you go, because it will save you tons of steps when you get to where you want to go and you realize you forgot that one thing. So I thought it'd be fun to show you what's in my tote. And I always have a kneeling pad because you need to kneel. And I have a can. I keep a can of string because you'll need to tie up things, and it's great to have it right there. And when you've got the string, you're going to need to be able to cut it. So having a pair of scissors is always great. This pair from Fiskars actually cuts on the side too, and it acts like a bottle opener so that you can do a number of things with this one. Other things I like to keep is always another spare set of gloves, because you get holes in them and that's really bad when you're out gardening. And lately I've been using, this is kind of fun, I've been using zip ties in the garden. I find them super easy to attach structures together for plants to vine up, and even sometimes for plants themselves, although that can be a little harsh on them. I usually use the twine for plants. Other things that I like to keep, of course, your pruners, both your major ones and your small ones. And then I really like this this new tool that Fiskars came out with in the last few years. This is a multitask tool. It does so many things. So it can prune your small stuff. One side is a regular knife blade and the other is serrated. So when you get a bale of straw or something and you need to cut it, or you're wanting to cut a bag of manure open or something, you don't have to run and find something else. You can use this one tool. So this even comes with a belt, so you could go out in the garden with just this and you probably have it. So those are some of the things that I like to keep all the time. Of course, always have a trowel, always have a weeder that you can, this is a really good weeder that you can get in the cracks of your walkways and things. So you want to always have those with you, because when you're out, you're going to have weeds. You'll always have that. So those are my organic gardening tips that have really helped me, and I hope they help you too.